All right, so this is in the International Journal of Philosophical Studies on Empathy by Maria Baghramian. For Viper's Gratitude, asked for a contemporary Irish philosopher. On empathy. And so, as always, feel free to ask questions. Let me drop the link in chat real fast so you guys can, not that anyone cares, but it will, there's the link, and you can always type !paper, and it'll be in the show notes if you're watching this later on the YouTubes. All right, cool. On empathy. This is just a interesting, well, we'll find out. This special issue arose from the 2018 competition for the Robert Papazian Essay Prize in Ethics and Political Philosophy, where the theme was empathy, with a special focus on its moral, political, epistemic, and social roles and significance. The theme proved extremely popular, particularly with early career philosophers and advanced PhDs. As a consequence, it was decided that, in addition to the annual Robert Papazian Essay Prize, to award a second prize of the monetary value of €1,500 to an entry by an early career post-PhD philosopher, and to publish all the shortlisted entries in a special issue of the IJPS. The overall winner of the 2018 essay competition was Monica Belzer, LMU Munich, with an essay on the relational value of empathy. The winner of the 2018 Special Early Career Robert Papazian Essay Prize was Mark Fagiano from Central Florida University with the essay Relational Empathy. It is a strong indicator of the level. Am I just reading a history here? Okay, we're going to get into this stuff. All right, good. It is a strong indicator of the level of interest in the topic of empathy among a new generation of researchers that the journal received such a large number of entries from early career researchers and advanced PhD students. Many of the entries, including the 2 winning essays, address the question of how to define and understand empathy, either directly or indirectly, in the course of arguing for a distinct thesis. As contributors have frequently pointed out, one difficulty in discussing empathy in philosophy and beyond is the profusion of the definitions of the concept, a difficulty that is compounded by a lack of clarity in the distinction between empathy and cognate concepts such as sympathy and compassion. This is fair. A lot of people talk about empathy. They don't exactly define what they mean, especially as compared to like sympathy or compassion, or the combination of sympathy and compassion. This diversity of interpretations is taken by some contributors, for example Mark Fagiano, as an invitation to a pluralist approach to empathy, while others see it as an indication of the confusion around the concept and argue that we either should come up with a better, more precise definition, as in the case of Monica Belzer, or to abandon the concept altogether. Where everyone seems to agree is that while the term empathy is bandied around in both popular media and the more specialized publication of philosophy and psychology, a clearer understanding and definition of it is still unavailable. Yeah, that confusion is why Anakin Skywalker fell. Yeah, that's fair. Every essay published in this volume in various ways engages with this difficulty. We therefore hope that this special issue will go some way towards addressing this widespread concern. In addition, some of the articles collected here engage directly with the ethical concerns related to empathy and raise interesting points about its moral dimension. This is particularly true of the winning essay, The Relational View of Empathy, and the essay by Sarah Songhorian, The Contribution of Empathy to Ethics, and Kevin Cutright's The Empathic Soldier, as well as the contributions to the Symposium on Empathy, Vulnerability, and Illness. Okay, so this is, an introductory essay to a bunch of other essays, but that's fine, because I think now we're going to at least talk about some stuff, which is kind of fun, but it's just going to be bite-sized. The winning essay of Monica Belzer argues for a social rather than psychological account of empathy and maintains that the role of empathy in our moral lives should be understood in terms of the opportunity it provides for sharing valuable experiences with others. Okay, that immediately is interesting, because empathy is usually taken as a property of a person, that they either have empathy or they don't. The idea that you're doing a social group understanding of it, that it only exists in like a society, that's different. Does the society provide examples of places where you can have valuable shared experiences? Example, the Dragon Con that Shane is going to, that is going to bring a whole bunch of like-minded people together that hopefully will give a valuable experience for sharing between those folks. So like the question of like the con culture, is that a place where you can do like, will you be able to like be more empathic with those people who are like-minded like you? And this is also the question of like in-person philosophy versus like online philosophy. It is much harder to gauge how someone is feeling when all you have is this little fucking square that I exist in right here. And like that's one of the reasons why I have a face cam while doing this, so that you might understand it. But this is very hard to do. You need, and like but the platform Twitch is that you can do this on Twitch. You can feel like you are part of a community here, and that maybe the empathy is built into the social network, not into the people. That's interesting. Okay. Empathy, Betzler, I apologize. Betzler maintains has a distinctly relational value. It is both extrinsically and intrinsically valuable because it fosters positive experiences such as recognition, self-esteem, trust, and self-trust, attachment, and affection. And there goes my voice. Are you being postmodernist again, Shane? You are. This might sound postmodernist, and I guess it is a bit, but it doesn't empathy imply that we have to be able to feel the same as another person? Or is that the larger point the author is saying? No, that's, I think, most people's definition is some sort of fellow feeling. It is a kind of sympathy, and that was sort of the issue, that we don't have a clear distinction between sympathy and empathy. So that you might feel something for the other person, not necessarily the exact same thing, but you feel bad when they feel bad, not necessarily sympathetically. But can we do that? Well, that's a great question. I don't know if we can do that. People think you can. We read a paper a while back that basically said it's kind of rare. That was a paper Aristotle suggested. Is it this difference between an active and passive trait? See, this is the problem, Vipers. I don't know. And these people are arguing about that. And so, like, I think that's what they were saying. One of the essays was exactly on this. Like, if maybe active, passive, or something, difference between sympathy and empathy. I don't know. You have to be empathic rather than just be... Wait, you have to be empathic rather than just be empathic. So you have to, like, you're thinking it's like you have to actively act to try to feel what something about other people. Maybe that's a good way of looking at it. I don't know. Yeah, but see, the idea that it's a social thing here, this is like completely different. Social rather than psychological. Like most people are treating it like a psychological thing. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. The difference between understanding someone making a language joke and actually making a point when reading Twitch chat is very difficult. Okay. Empathy, Betzler maintains, has a distinct... Oh, I read this. Relational value, extrinsic and intrinsically valuable because it fosters all these good things. The relational value of empathy, in turn, provide reasons to empathize on moral grounds and also to keep empathy within reasonable bounds and not to feel compelled to exercise it constantly and in an impartial manner. Referees found the paper original, interesting, and insightful, and praised it for good use of textual evidence from various sources, including novels. Yeah, so the idea that like you're gonna have only empathy in certain locations at certain times, and this is going to provide a like limits to empathy, to keep people safe. That's kind of interesting too. That like the idea that like the con is self-selecting, and so when you go to like Dragon Con, you're self-selected to be with like-minded people, and that will both enable you to be empathic with those people but also keep it within certain bounds. I mean, back to Shane's question, what do you mean exactly the same as another person? Like, how close of a feeling do you need to have for another person? Like, given some error bars, it might not be so hard to actually feel like another person. Like, is my pain like your pain? No one knows. That's the classic philosophy question. But the real answer is, I can almost guarantee you it feels exactly the fucking same. When I get a mosquito bite and you get a mosquito bite, we know what a fucking mosquito bite feels like, and you talk about it. There's no disagreement there. And so I bet a lot of stuff is like that too. Like, it's a classic philosophy question, like how can you feel someone else's pain? But when we talk about like mosquito bites, there's no question about this stuff. Okay, so this is a, this is a great start off, and and I guess I should apologize to Vipers because we're not reading the philosophy of a contemporary Irish philosopher. We are reading their analysis of other philosophers, but that's okay. Seems like it's very well written, to tell you the truth, and I'm very much appreciating it. Like this, you might notice that I haven't stumbled as much in the one page here as I was stumbling on like the few paragraphs in the other previous essay. Okay. The winner of the 2018 Special Early Career Prize was Mark Fagiano from University of Central Florida, Orlando, who in his essay, Relational Empathy, rather than looking for an answer to questions about the nature of empathy, argues for a pluralistic understanding of it. Fagiano characterizes empathy in terms of a set of three conceptually distinct, though experientially overlapping relations. The relations of feeling into, feeling with, and feeling for. Okay, this is more to answering Shane's question, I think. He finds instances of all three uses of empathy or closely related concepts such as sympathy in texts starting from the late 18th century to the present. Okay, so this is interesting too. 18th century is not that long ago in terms of philosophy, so it's a recent idea. He then applies this relational or pluralist theory to a number of problems throughout the healthcare system. Referees found the combination of philosophical analysis, textual interpretation, and an attempt at application not only novel but useful. See, that's good. And this is interesting too. If you look at these, where is this? Here it is. Relations of feeling into, feeling with, and feeling for. Okay? So if you're feeling into something, like what are you like getting yourself into? Feeling with somebody else, you're feeling something alongside someone else, you're feeling for somebody else. Like they may not be feeling, but you're feeling for it. So you've got these different sort of you're feeling something out, you're feeling into it. So these are different ways of feeling with something. Yeah, a little kinky. But like this is sort of getting into the experience of how you feel things for other people. And yeah, that will be a little kinky depending on how we can go back to the flashlight picture. But like, this is sort of the thing. Maybe we're feeling exactly the same thing as other people, but we're feeling for them in a certain way. Or we're feeling the idea that like, something we're trying to get into similar ideas as someone else is, like we're feeling around in those ideas, like this feeling into idea. So this is an interesting way of going about it. You're talking about different ways you might feel similarly to someone else. So like, okay, so like this right here, again, interesting stuff, ways of feeling how someone else feels and how you get into it, how you are with them when you're feeling it, and how you might feel about it and feeling for them. Okay, the 5 remaining articles had been, and see, this is like, again, so clear, this paragraph. Like, and I hate using the word clear, but like there's no question about what is going on in that essay, just in this short little summary of it. The 5 remaining articles had been shortlisted for the Robert Papazian Prize and were praised for a variety of reasons by the referees. G.H. Meads and Willard Van Orman Quine's Naturalized Theories of Meaning by Guido Baggio and No Empathy for Empathy by Heraclius Ioannidis provide a more historic understanding of the uses of the term empathy. Yeah, and this is interesting. Again, this was also mentioned up here, that it's an 18th century term. That means it's only from the late 1700s to the present, what they're saying. And that's interesting because a bunch of our current terms that we use now were never used before this time. A lot of our ideas come out of the moderns, and this means this is a moderns mindset from like, the 1500s on, or even the 1400s on, from like late medieval times into like up until like the 1800s or the 1900s, like early 1900s even, like those ideas. Sociologists, early 1900s. Yeah, see, this is what I mean. Like these thoughts are basically, they've been banging around, but it's but only not that long. And so this is kind of cool. Yeah, sociologists, early 1900s. That's kind of cool. But yeah, so I mean, the poster child for this is the word aesthetics. It, like, we have the exact date and location the first time that word was ever used, and you can like look it up. And it was like it was like 1873 or something. And like we have this whole like idea that aesthetic has some meaning. But like, of course, we've had studies of art for thousands of years, but the idea of like a study of art in and for itself alone, that is like in the last 150 years only. And so the idea that like empathy has only really been around from like the late 18th century, so only 250 years away, maybe for empathy like has been a standalone concept. Okay, so let's talk about that. Guido Baggio's article provided a highly scholarly account of empathy in the context of George Herbert Mead's and Willard Van Orman Quine's behavioristic theories of meaning and language. The paper examines the similarities and differences between Mead's notion of sympathy and Quine's notion of empathy, and the role in interpreting and using language. Quine has been criticized for not distinguishing clearly between the descriptive and the normative features of empathy. Baggio offers a way of overcoming this predicament. Heracles Ionides in No Empathy for Empathy, an existential reading of Husserl's Forgotten Question, looks back at Husserl's use of the term in some of his key texts in order to establish a better understanding of empathy. And Husserl was late 1800s into early 1900s. And he was a great logician and great philosopher. He gets a little overshadowed nowadays by his student Heidegger and some other stuff, but well, not really a student. Was it his student? Forget, it might have been. Yeah, it was. Okay, but even so, he maintains contrary to mainstream readings of Husserl that for Husserl, empathy is never an accomplished event and that any understanding of others through it is only partial. Like Monica Belzer, Heracles Ionides also emphasizes the social and communal dimensions of empathy. Furthermore, he rejects attempts to understand it in neuroscientific terms. So that's interesting. So you can't even reduce it to something in the brain. It is something in the social world then. Rhianna Belzer's Finding Empathy, How Neuroscientific Measures, Evidence, and Conceptualizations Interact similarly highlights the limits of neuroscientific evidence in uncovering the processes underlying empathy, but she is reluctant to deny the relevance of such evidence for the fuller understanding of empathy. She examines how neuroscientists studying empathy use the concept in their practice and argue that neuroscientists do not find empathy by collecting neuroscientific evidence, rather they presuppose a conceptual understanding of empathy in the process of gathering the relevant data. However, she accepts that their approach can help us better understand, achieve a better understanding of empathic processes. Yeah, so if you go looking for empathy, what do you find? And that's interesting too, because there may be interesting things that you find that you would not have found otherwise. And so what do they find and what is that worth is the question. Now, granted, you are assuming the existence of empathy, and so you may is actually called the Texas sharpshooter. I was thinking about this the other day. Once you go looking for evidence, you may like find stuff that you're basically you focus in on it, and that's what there's a fallacy there. But like that doesn't mean that you didn't actually get something. You have to just have then an objective like sort of observer see, is there anything really to it afterwards? But it's interesting, like, did you actually find anything interesting, or do the neuroscientists find anything interesting when they go looking for empathy? What did they find? Maybe it is interesting. I don't know. Okay, the next two essays deal with the ethics of empathy directly. The Contribution of Empathy to Ethics by Sarah Songhorian give a balanced and informed account of the role of empathic ethics, of empathy in ethics. Her paper, the referees noted, will be useful as a general starting point in any investigation of the connections between empathy and ethics. The Empathic Soldier by Kevin Cutright, in contrast, deals with the very specific but neglected topic of the role of empathy in relation to the conduct of war and aims to show the relevance of empathy to the tactical and strategic demands of war. And we were just talking about this a week or two ago, or a few roulettes ago, when we were talking about what is it when we use drones, because in some sense when you're so far removed from the battle yourself, you're in some office in DC and you're blowing somebody up the other side of the world, how do you actually feel for the lives of the people you're exploding? Because that seems like it makes a difference when you're trying not to kill civilians. So this is an important question, and we just read a paper on this. He maintains that empathy, understood as a doorway to understanding others' experiences, including their emotions, beliefs, perspectives, or intentions, can bolster soldiers' understanding of human actors in the operational environment of a war and improve their overall approach. What's that? Okay. The special issue concludes with the proceedings of a symposium held in the UCD Center for Ethics in Public Life on the topic of empathy, vulnerability, and illness. Ian Kidd, Danielle Pathophobia, Lisa Magri, and Roland Stout discussed the connections between empathy, vulnerability, and illness in their contributions. The symposium was motivated by the idea that while being ill is clearly a form of vulnerability, it is also the case that being open towards someone who is ill involves a form of vulnerability on the part of the empathizer. The workshop explored this specific connection between empathy and vulnerability and illness. Yeah, I mean, if you're being open to someone who's mentally ill, you're going to be thinking about mentally ill thoughts, and that doesn't sound very healthy. I mean, you can like sort of try to bracket the thought, you try to, put it in context, but the more you think about it, it may not be good for you. It's sort of like reliving a trauma. Kidd argues that the failure to empathize with people who are ill is best conceptualized as the exercise of a vice he calls pathophobia. Pathophobia argues that an empathic relationship with people with dementia depends on conceiving of their condition as a kind of vulnerability. Shane says, horrible logic joke, but gonna share it anyway. A man once abandoned exegetical research and went looking for evidence for God. When he found it, he declared, I see Jesus. Okay, that was terrible. You're right. I see Jesus. Okay. Viper says that drone warfare paper is an example of why I have a problem with philosophy saying not much in so many words. It was how many pages? Well, a neuroscience paper would say, yeah, your mirror neurons don't activate. Here's the exact mechanism. Yeah. But again, the science is not like always so clear. Yeah, your mirror neurons do it, but if like that's not the right phenomenon, like they're saying that empathy is something not even in the brain, like it has to do with the social interactions, then you're not going to see mirror neurons, or you're not going to see the right phenomena when you're looking at the mirror neurons. And like that's fair that, philosophy talks a big game but may not say anything. But again, if you're not looking at the right phenomena, like if you're looking at the mirror neurons and it's not a mirror neuron phenomenon in the brain, then you're missing what you need to be looking at. So, I mean, that's kind of exactly what the person up here was saying with the, what was it? Finding the, no. Yeah, this is the finding empathy, how neurosciences measures evidence and conceptualizes interact. Like that's, you need to look at that stuff. And so only then can you actually see what you're looking for. But like, see, that's the problem. A lot of this stuff, Vipers, is that if you assume you already know what you're looking for, then you're never going to find something you didn't expect. And like that's the thing, like the philosophy is looking for stuff we haven't found yet. And that's what this whole thing is about. If you are looking for empathy as something which we actually haven't been looking for before, and you go looking the mirror neurons, you might not find anything there because the mirror neurons are like old science that was looking for old ideas. And if you're looking for something new, this is not going, you're not going to find it. And so, yeah, being wordy is a job hazard of philosophy. It just is. But like you have to accept that in philosophy, that these people are going to talk too much. And maybe not even say anything. Like you might just be right in the end. Like that could be it. Like the mirror neurons do not fire when we're talking about empathy, or we think we're empathic, and so there really isn't anything unique about empathy, and it doesn't happen. And that could be the truth, but we don't know that yet. Like that just isn't something we know yet. And we may never know, or we may find out one day. Okay. Yeah, pathophobia, though, like that you're afraid of someone else's pathology. And that seems like a reasonable thing. People are trying to protect themselves from dangerous thoughts and dangerous ideas and stuff like that. And so the idea that you don't want to deal with somebody that, like, you know, get one of these people that is, you know, like massively egotistical. You get like one of these like personality disorder things, and you don't want to deal with their like psychosis. You might just avoid that on principle and be afraid of it. That seems like a thing. Yes, okay. Petherbridge argues that an empathic relationship with people with dementia depends on conceiving of their condition as a kind of vulnerability of their corporeal nature and also of their identity. Magri argues that the respect for another person is constituted by a recognition of the other person's subjectivity and is the central condition for empathizing with them. As a result, she defends the view that empathy is not a virtue in Aristotle's sense. In a similar vein, Stout holds that empathy is openness to the emotional perspective of another person. Yeah, so we've got emotional perspective. Do you think the mirror neurons are their emotional perspective? Maybe they show up there, maybe not. And so that's the thing. And again, it's like this is another person's subjectivity. How do you talk about someone's subjectivity? Like, is that the mirror neurons? Maybe not. Okay. He argues that empathy does not require that one agrees with the other person's perspective or loses one's own perspective, so empathy in this approach involves holding two emotional perspectives in mind simultaneously, a feat that may be particularly difficult if one suffers from a certain sort of anxiety. That seems right. Maybe it's just being empathic is really hard because you have to have multiple emotions at the same time. Possible. Maybe. I don't know. All articles appearing in this issue were substantially revised in response to comments by 3 referees. The journal and the editors appreciate their generous help and would like to thank them for their time and effort. Okay, so this was not what I expected. I thought we were just going to, be reading a short paper on empathy by Maria Baghramian. But, yeah. Oh, Shane. Here's my favorite, and Vipers, you might appreciate this too. This is is it a limerick or something? I forget. But a logician in liquor production had a still of magnificent construction. The alcohol boiled through magnetic coils, and she called it proof by induction. So yeah. I wonder where I got that. I forget. But yeah, that's fun. Yeah, like this. I have not memorized that many limericks, but and Vipers is like, okay. Yeah, come on, Vipers, you have to like that limerick. Yeah. Yeah, so I apologize. This was not like proper philosophy by the person, but it was very well written and analyzed philosophy by the person. So sometimes you don't get what you want, but like this was, as far as I've read a few of these on Philosophy Roulette go, these sort of introductory essays, this is one of the best ones I've read on Roulette because everything was so basically... The ideas themselves were there so quickly. Like, there was no space wasted here. They just said exactly what it was and nothing. The science one next time? What was that? Yeah, we could do that, probably. Disagreement in science. This is another introduction, unfortunately. This is another introduction to a special issue. Yeah, I mean, do you want, like, I just looked back at it. I know you can't see that, but like, that one was another introduction. So, that's why probably it was shorter than the other things, even though it's still 15 pages. We can do that. We can like, we can find, we can do a an Irish philosopher happily next time. I'm thinking John Simons is Irish too anyway. I just can't seem to understand why. I don't know where it says where his history, but I can look him up. And I know he has good stuff because I know this guy. Well, a little bit. He's got no, like, personal thing here. But anyway, do we have anything else to say? Because I think my voice is starting to go, so I can't really keep going, read another paper, even though this was short. It was short and sweet, though. So, it seems like an interesting little, group of papers on empathy. Which, if you're interested in, the idea that, like, it's a collective action, empathy, like that you do in groups, and that is not an issue so much in someone's head or in your psychology, which, the sympathy might be what we know about, really. That's like a psychological thing. But empathy as a social construct that we create in groups, like where we have space to feel others' emotions. That's an interesting concept, and maybe that's something we need to work on, that like we can create, like, we have like these things we call safe spaces. No one really, I don't think anyone likes that term or whatever, but like you can have a space to like actually empathize with other people. Yeah, but so many Americans say I'm Irish in the way that I could say I'm African. Yeah, but like this guy, I know John Simons, he just like went back and visited family and stuff recently, and like his wife is like also from the area. So I mean, that's why I brought it up. It wasn't like he's like actually, I think he grew up there or whatever. It wasn't I mean, this Maria Baghramian was born in Tehran, but she's been, I guess, working in Ireland her whole life. So, hard distinctions, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure he was like, this guy's, yeah, alright. We can find something for next time, though, if we want to. You always try to say you're of Irish descent or of Irish heritage, but yeah, I'm part Irish sometimes. Yeah, I mean, the U.S. Usage of the terms is not like the rest of the world, because, when someone says they're Irish here, it means they have Irish descent, basically, unless they're actually, like, just visiting, like, on vacation from Ireland. But, like, when Americans say that, they mean descent. They don't mean, actually, born and raised in Ireland, and they're just, like, visiting, or they moved over a few years ago. So, but, I mean, it's the part of just our history where we, very few, there's, like, not so many of, like, the native tribe peoples, like, the First Nations peoples left around, because we killed them all. It's like, yay, America, we're great. Yeah, I mean, those people get to do there. You'll get there eventually. Yeah, I'd love to get there. I've got some cousins on my mom's side that are over there. Yeah, the Irish and the Choctaw are tight. I've heard that story. The Choctaw sent food during the famine. Yeah. So, yeah, the peoples here were like, they seemed like they were pretty solid. I mean, I'm not saying they were perfect. I don't know the whole history, but they seemed like they were pretty solid peoples. They just didn't have the tech, and the Europeans killed them just quickly because of the technological overpowering. Yeah, and it wasn't like due to empathy. Yeah, there you go. Which does not exist in science, apparently. The neuroscience can't find it. So yeah, that's the thing. It's like, who has that space to think about how other people feel? Maybe the Choctaw knew something, or understand something about how to feel for other people that, like, the rest of us did not get. And we need some Choctaw philosophy. Shane says, I'm in a discussion about how pre-colonial American society is valid, but gets boned into American history classes on my Discord. Yeah, I mean, it's just a function. I guess if I had to guess, it's just that we killed so many of them that, like, there's not enough of it to, like, go around. Like, we wiped out that history, and so it just gets bundled into like all the stuff that we don't know enough about that was here before us, before the Europeans showed up. Yeah, I mean, exactly. The U.S. The United States is the best country in the world. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that's how it's taught, is that we're by far kicking so much ass that everyone else should be embarrassed. Okay. Anything else to say today? Anything else? Comments, questions, whatever else we